Hello, everybody. Welcome to Refute, and today we shall be talking about Sinn Fein. Sinn Fein is the second largest political party in the Dáil. It has 37 seats, just one behind Fianna Fáil. It is the official opposition and is led by Mary Lou MacDonald. She has led the party since 2018 after taking over from Gerry Adams. Gerry Adams was its longtime leader when Sinn Fein was kind of a political side. It was the political side for the IRA and began to transform out of that after the 98 Good Friday Agreement. However, when Mary Lou MacDonald came into power in the party in 2018, it was seen as a step forward and a step out of sectarianism and a step out of Sinn Féin being the political wing of the IRA and taking a more kind of diving headfirst into politics and staunchly being institutionalized so that they no longer kind of have any affiliation to the IRA. However, some of its members, some still do have, but you'll find that in most parties. Sinn Féin have 37 TDs, as I said prior. However, when it comes to senators and councillors, this is where Sinn Féin is struggling compared to the other parties. Sinn Féin, I believe, only have two or three senators and only have a handful of councillors on local councils. This is very, very bad for the size of the party that they are. If they hope to do anything on locally and councils and grow their support, they need to be able to have local councillors to kind of push the Sinn Féin idea that people within the party can do good. And also, when it comes to senators, I know the Irish Senate it doesn't really have much power, especially after De Valera got rid of it and brought it back again. But you still kind of need a presence there, and they don't have one at the minute. And this is a crucial thing if they were to come into power, because if they were to get a super majority, which I don't believe they'll be able to do currently, because they lack kind of grassroots support. They kind of get support in waves, like we seen there in the last European election and local elections. Sinn Féin failed to deliver locally. I believe they got one or two MEPs, Sinn Féin MEPs, elected to the European Parliament. However, when councillors would kind of be a bigger issue there, and Sinn Féin seriously lacking in councillors, seriously lacking in drive. Um, and it's going to be a big problem for them going forward. And will Mary Lou be the leader to address the problem? She might not be. Maybe somebody else might have to step up. But at the minute, it is a it is kind of a crisis that Sinn Féin is facing. Even though Sinn Féin are facing a crisis like this, they still are seeing from 37 seats in the Dáil a lot of support. But the thing is with the Sinn Féin party is when people vote for Sinn Féin, I'm not entirely sure that they vote for Sinn Féin out of allegiance or that they're heavily persuaded by their policies to vote for Sinn Féin. I think it's more of a frustration vote, that they vote for Sinn Féin out of, if they're frustrated with the Fianna Fáil or Fine Gael government, that they kind of, vote for Sinn Féin to voice their opinion, just so that Sinn Féin's kind of there in the background, looming over the current government to actually do something, because that's been a big problem in Irish politics. When you have Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael dominating, it doesn't innovate. That's the one thing. It's not really as competitive, so naturally there's no innovation. So now on to their policies. So looking at some of Sinn Féin's policies, they're very ambitious, they're very socialist, which isn't the worst thing. The biggest problem I have with their policies is they like to spend and spend and spend, and you can't really see any way that they're bringing in any extra money. Like we see here with their alternative housing budget, which is serious, and people, there is a massive housing crisis, but 1.4 billion extra capital expenditure to obviously bring in much needed housing. But then we have their alternative budget for health, into for 2024 again another 1.3 billion. Uh, in both these budgets, there's no talk of how we're going to generate more money, how we're going to pay for this. It seems that it's all going to fall back onto the debt. And as we know, the debt is kind of, it falls back onto the taxpayer. In the future, it's going to fall back onto us. Now, I don't know how they would generate more money, whether that would be through protectionism, which probably wouldn't work. But if they had it in there, at least it'd be some way of doing it. If it was through raising corporate tax, that would generate a lot of money. It might drive away some business, but it would still, you can't just pull the money up out of the ground, you know, pull up a bit of clay and say, there's your money. There are some very needed things in here, though. In If you go to sinnfein.ie, they have all their kind of manifestos and manuscripts about what they hope to do. One that I probably would like is the reforming Ireland's social welfare system. The social welfare system here is, it's cracked basically. It's terrible. Well, it's not terrible. It's very generous, but there's no, like, you can claim disability for the rest of your life if you break your toe. It is like there needs to be significant changes. And then you have people who are the likes of who worked all their lives and are barely scraping by with the costs of living. And it's, it needs to be addressed. Another thing that they hope to plan on introducing, which I think is, for me personally anyway, it would be a bit stupid, is introducing their emergency measures when it comes to rent. Yes, rent is a big problem. They have it here on their page about how they're planning on building 50,000 homes over 5 years. Their plan also, when it comes to rent, is to introduce an emergency measure. It was the measure that the government introduced when COVID was still a thing. How many years ago that was? Um, that where you couldn't be evicted from your house if you missed a few payments or stuff. It created a lot of headaches. Um, Renters were kind of promised on that when COVID ended, that wouldn't be a thing and it would gotten rid of, and the government delivered on that. But Sinn Fein want to reintroduce that. They want to make it so you can't get kicked out, or like, if you're given a notice, the notice can't be for nothing. They're given. I feel like it's a bit stupid because here in Ireland, private sector building houses is a big thing. The private sector does deliver many houses, and if you introduce measures like these, now it's going to drive down the number of houses that private sector people are building, and that's going to put more pressure onto the housing crisis, and that means it's going to cost the government even more in their 1.3 billion for it. So that could probably easily go up to 2 billion. And not only that, but renters here at the minute, or landlords at the minute, won't have kind of the same security, um, that if they have to pay for their apartments and stuff, and costs go up, that they can't rise the costs on their tenants, which it's definitely happening where landlords are, they're raising the costs too much. They don't need to raise it as much, which I think the current government, I'm not going to say they have a handle on the renting crisis because it's ridiculous, but they have a handle on it where the landlords can't exponentially increase it 1 year. They can't like increase it by 20%. And I think that's good, but this uh, decision here and their plan to introduce something where you couldn't be evicted, or at least it'd be very hard to evict you, and you couldn't raise the price of the dwelling. It puts the squeeze on the private sector, and we need to remember that the private sector here in Ireland delivers a lot of things, and a lot of things that we mightn't see. And if you put the squeeze on it, it'll definitely be felt in the economy. One thing, however, that I will give to Sinn Féin is their stance on unity. Um, I myself believe unity should come about, should be achieved. However, there must be some big preparations for it. Sinn Féin certainly have started their prepping for it. I mean, yeah, they've been prepping for it for nearly 100 years. But currently, the party has a few documents out about what they might like to see. Some of them, looking at them there, most of them date up to 2021, 22, not really recently. Um, but at least they're kind of making the first steps. And they are always calling for Sinn Fein. Always, 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 always goes on the platform of Irish unity and bringing about Irish unity. However, they never say anything about how they're going to prepare for Irish unity or how they're going to pay for Irish unity. Because Irish unity is probably going to be one of the most costly endeavours that the state has ever taken part in. And you might be saying to yourself, well, the foundation of the state was probably the most, that cost the most in terms of borrowing. It didn't, because we never really borrowed anything. The Irish government, when it first came into being, never borrowed much. Anything that was to be spent had to be signed off by a board, or the top official in, I think it was some finance department. And financiers are very, very mean, and they're not going to give you money for nothing. And they haven't set about putting money on the side, maybe, or you know helping programs for um, cross-border infrastructure or anything like that. The kind of, they're campaigning on it, they're getting there, they just need to get there a bit quicker and kind of show the economics for it. Because I've dug into it there myself. When Ireland is fully unified, I believe uh, it's a 1200 euro increase to kind of what you'd have in your back pocket every day. Well, every year, but you wouldn't see that for a couple of years. But they haven't really much on the economics, and that's the thing that will kind of define unity. Because we want unity to be a brilliant time. Uh, Prospects for the future are excellent, but it also has a big possibility of ruining the economy and ruining the kind of day of unity and ruining what we think of unity. And we don't want the day we unify to be the day of despair, where we don't know what's going to be in hold for the future or what's the economy going to be like. So there needs to be a bit more prep behind it. If you like today's episode, don't forget to like and subscribe, as we are a new channel. Well, I am a new channel. I'm still experimenting. Today is kind of a more podcasty feel. I will be getting a camera in the future to see, you know, obviously that would be better, but the camera I have at the minute isn't the best. So, just give me any of your feedback. It'll greatly be appreciated. And thanks very much for tuning in.